The dust swirled around Diana Porter's worn boots as she stood on the porch of the farmhouse that had been her home for 3 years, clutching a small carpet bag that held everything she was allowed to keep. Her mother-in-law's face was hard as granite, her father-in-law's eyes cold and unforgiving as they waited for her to leave the property for good. It was August 1882 in Spokane, Washington, and the late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the wooden planks beneath her feet. "You have brought shame to this family," her mother-in-law Margaret said, her voice cutting through the hot air like a knife. "3 years married to our Thomas, and not even a whisper of a child. You are barren, and we will not waste another day feeding a useless mouth." Diana's hands trembled as she gripped the handle of her bag tighter. Her husband Thomas stood behind his parents, his face turned away, refusing to meet her eyes. The man she had married, who had promised to love her in sickness and health, said nothing in her defense. He had grown colder with each passing month when her monthly courses came, when her belly remained flat, when the cradle his mother had placed in their bedroom stayed empty. "Thomas," Diana whispered, her voice breaking. "Please." He finally looked at her then, and the disappointment in his eyes cut deeper than any words his parents could hurl at her. "You heard my mother," he said quietly. "It is best if you go." The betrayal felt like a physical blow to her chest. She had been a good wife, had worked from dawn until dusk, keeping their home, tending the garden, cooking and cleaning and mending. She had loved him with everything she had, and it still had not been enough. Her inability to conceive had poisoned everything, had turned their marriage into something cold and bitter. "Where am I supposed to go?" Diana asked, hating the desperation in her own voice. "That is no longer our concern," Margaret said firmly. "You have family somewhere, do you not?" Diana's parents had died of fever 2 years before she married Thomas. She had a cousin in Oregon, but they had never been close, and she had no money for the journey. She was 22 years old and completely alone in the world. "I have nowhere," she said softly. "Then you should have thought of that before you trapped our son into marriage with your lies," Margaret snapped. "You presented yourself as a healthy young woman, capable of giving us grandchildren. You have failed in the one duty that matters." Diana wanted to scream that it was not her fault, that she had wanted children just as desperately as they did, that her arms ached to hold a baby of her own. But she knew it would make no difference. In their eyes, she was defective, broken, worthless. She descended the porch steps slowly, each one feeling like a mile. When she reached the dusty road, she turned back one last time, hoping Thomas would change his mind, would remember the vows they had made. But he had already gone inside, and his parents stood like sentries, making sure she truly left. Diana walked down the road toward town, the late summer sun beating down on her bonnet, her feet stirring up small clouds of dust with each step. She had exactly $7.30 in her pocket, everything she had managed to save from selling eggs and preserves at the market. It would not last long. The walk to Spokane took nearly 2 hours, and by the time she reached the main street, her feet were blistered and her throat parched. The town was bustling with activity as people finished their daily business before supper. She passed the general store, the blacksmith, the saloon, and the small church where she and Thomas had been married. Everything looked the same, but her entire world had crumbled. She found herself standing in front of the boarding house, a 2-story building with peeling white paint. The sign in the window said rooms were $2 a week. Diana did the calculations in her head. She could afford 3 weeks, maybe 4 if she ate very little. Then what? The woman who ran the boarding house, Mrs. Chen, a widow from China who had come west with her husband during the railroad construction, looked at Diana with kind but shrewd eyes. "You need a room?" she asked in accented English. "Yes, please," Diana replied. "Just for a few weeks." Mrs. Chen studied her face, taking in the redness around her eyes, the way she held her bag like it was the only thing anchoring her to the earth. "Husband trouble?" Diana's throat tightened. "I have no husband anymore." Mrs. Chen nodded, asking no more questions. Room upstairs. Second door on the left. Meals are extra. 25 cents for breakfast, 35 for supper. Diana counted out the coins carefully, paying for 2 weeks in advance and one meal a day. She would have to make it work somehow. The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a single window that looked out over the alley behind the building. Diana set her carpet bag on the bed and sat down beside it, her body finally giving in to the exhaustion and heartbreak of the day. She cried then, deep wrenching sobs that came from somewhere dark inside her, crying for the life she had lost, for the husband who had abandoned her, for the children she would apparently never have. When the tears finally stopped, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Diana washed her face with water from the basin and tried to compose herself. She needed to think practically now. She needed to find work. The next morning, Diana put on her best dress, a simple blue calico that she had made herself, and set out to find employment. She went to every shop and business in town, asking if they needed help. The general store did not need anyone. The milliner already had an assistant. The restaurant said they only hired men for kitchen work. The seamstress looked at her stitching and said it was adequate, but she could not afford to take on anyone new. By the afternoon, Diana's hope was wearing thin. She had one more place to try, the Silver Spur Saloon, though the thought of working in such an establishment made her nervous. But beggars could not be choosers. The owner, a heavy-set man named Frank, looked her up and down with calculating eyes. "You ever served drinks before?" "No, sir, but I am a fast learner," Diana said. "The men can get rough sometimes. You need a thick skin." "I can manage." Frank seemed to consider it, then shook his head. "Sorry, miss. I need someone with experience. Girls come in here thinking they can handle it, then quit after a day when some drunk cowboy gets handsy." Diana left the saloon feeling defeated. She walked aimlessly through town, trying to figure out her next move. As she passed the church, she considered asking the Reverend for help, but the thought of explaining her situation, of admitting her shame, was too much to bear. She found herself on the outskirts of town, where the buildings gave way to open fields and scattered homesteads. A sign pointed toward the Johnson Ranch, 3 miles north. Diana remembered Thomas mentioning the Johnsons, a large cattle operation that employed several ranch hands. With nothing else to do, she started walking. The Johnson Ranch was impressive, sprawling over what looked like hundreds of acres. Diana could see cattle dotting the distant hills, and several buildings including a large barn, a bunkhouse, and a main house that looked well maintained. She approached nervously, unsure of her reception. A man was working near the barn, mending a section of fence. He looked up as she approached, and Diana's breath caught slightly. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and sharp blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His face was tanned from long hours in the sun, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he was not smiling now. He appeared to be in his mid-20s, and there was something steady and capable about the way he moved. "Can I help you, miss?" he asked, setting down his tools and removing his hat politely. "I am looking for work," Diana said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I can cook, clean, mend, tend a garden. I am a hard worker." The man studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I am Samuel Sullivan, foreman here. Mrs. Johnson handles the hiring for housework, but she is in town today visiting her sister. Will not be back until tomorrow." Diana's shoulders sagged. Another day of uncertainty, another day of watching her meager funds dwindle. Samuel must have seen the disappointment on her face because his expression softened. "You come all the way from town?" "Yes, sir." "That is a long walk in this heat. Why do you not come inside and have some water at least? You look about ready to collapse." Diana wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some dignity, but her throat was desperately dry and her head was starting to pound. "Thank you," she said quietly. Samuel led her to the bunkhouse, a long building where the ranch hands stayed. It was empty at this time of day, the men all out working. He poured her a cup of water from a large pitcher and gestured for her to sit at the rough wooden table. Diana drank gratefully, the cool water soothing her parched throat. Samuel sat across from her, his eyes curious but not unkind. "You new to Spokane?" he asked. "I have been here 3 years," Diana replied. "I was married to Thomas Porter." She saw recognition flicker in Samuel's eyes. The Porter family was well known in the area. "Was married?" Diana looked down at her hands, shame heating her cheeks. "His family sent me away. I could not give them children." She did not know why she was telling him this. A stranger. Perhaps it was because he had shown her kindness when everyone else had turned her away. Perhaps it was because she was so tired of carrying the weight of it alone. Samuel was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "That is a cruel thing to do to a person." Diana looked up at him in surprise. She had expected judgment, pity at best. But Samuel's eyes held something different, something that looked like genuine anger on her behalf. "A marriage is supposed to be more than just producing children," he continued. "It is supposed to be a partnership, a commitment. For them to cast you out like that, it is shameful. The shame is theirs, not yours." Diana felt tears prick at her eyes again, but she blinked them back. "Thank you for saying that." "I am just speaking the truth." Samuel stood up and moved to the small stove in the corner. "You hungry? I was about to make myself some lunch." "I do not want to be a burden." "It is no burden. I am making food anyway, and it is just as easy to make enough for two." Diana watched as he efficiently prepared a simple meal of bread, cheese, and leftover stew from the night before. He moved with the ease of someone accustomed to taking care of himself, and she found herself relaxing slightly in his presence. There was something calming about Samuel Sullivan, something solid and dependable. They ate together, and Samuel asked her questions about her skills and experience. Diana found herself talking more than she had in months, telling him about the garden she had maintained, the preserves she made, her skill with a needle. Samuel listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions. "Mrs. Johnson has been saying she needs help around the house," Samuel said when they finished eating. "Her daughter Mary used to help, but she got married last spring and moved to Seattle. Mrs. Johnson is trying to manage everything herself, but it is too much. I think you would be a good fit." "Do you really think she would hire me?" Diana asked, hope flickering in her chest. "I will put in a good word for you," Samuel promised. "Come back tomorrow afternoon. Mrs. Johnson should be back by then." "Thank you," Diana said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "You have been very kind to me." Samuel walked her back to the main road, and as Diana made the long trek back to town, she felt lighter than she had in days. There was no guarantee that Mrs. Johnson would hire her, but at least she had a chance, and that was more than she had when she woke up that morning. True to his word, when Diana returned to the Johnson ranch the next afternoon, Samuel was waiting for her near the barn. He had already spoken to Mrs. Johnson, and the older woman was expecting her. Mrs. Alice Johnson was a handsome woman in her early 50s, with graying blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp green eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She invited Diana into the main house, which was comfortably furnished with well-worn furniture and cheerful curtains at the windows. "Samuel speaks highly of you," Mrs. Johnson said as they sat in the parlor. "He said you are a hard worker and in need of a position." "Yes, madam," Diana replied. "I can cook, clean, sew, tend a garden, preserve food, and manage a household. I am willing to work hard." Mrs. Johnson asked her several questions about her experience, and Diana answered honestly, even about the circumstances that had led her to seek employment. She expected to see disapproval in Mrs. Johnson's eyes, but instead the older woman's expression softened. "I had 3 miscarriages before I had Mary," Mrs. Johnson said quietly. "People said terrible things, questioned whether I was fit to be a wife. It nearly destroyed me." So I understand something of what you have been through. Diana felt a lump form in her throat. I am sorry for your loss. It was a long time ago, but I learned that a woman's worth is not determined by her ability to bear children. There are many ways to contribute, many ways to build a life. Mrs. Johnson stood up. I would like to offer you a position as my housekeeper. You would live here in the main house, have your own room, meals provided plus $20 a month. Sundays off. What do you say? $20 a month was more than Diana had dared hope for. I accept, she said quickly. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. You will not regret this. I am sure I will not. Can you start Monday? I can start today if you need me, Diana said eagerly. Mrs. Johnson smiled. Monday will be fine. That will give you time to settle your affairs in town. Diana practically floated back to Spokane. She would have a place to live, steady work, and enough money to save for her future. For the first time since being cast out by the Porters, she felt like she might actually survive this. She spent the weekend organizing her few belongings and saying goodbye to Mrs. Chin, who seemed pleased that Diana had found a good position. On Monday morning, Diana arrived at the Johnson Ranch with her carpetbag, ready to begin her new life. Mrs. Johnson showed her to a small but comfortable room on the second floor of the main house with a real bed, a wardrobe, and a window that looked out over the ranch. It was more space than Diana had ever had to herself, and she felt a surge of gratitude. The work was demanding but satisfying. Diana rose early to prepare breakfast for Mrs. Johnson and her husband Robert, a quiet man who spent most of his time managing the ranch operations. She cleaned the house, did the laundry, tended the vegetable garden, and prepared meals. Mrs. Johnson was a fair employer, quick with praise when Diana did well, and patient when teaching her the specific ways she liked things done. Diana fell into a routine, and the days began to blur together in a comforting rhythm. She saw Samuel often, as he came to the main house for meals with the other ranch hands and to discuss ranch business with Mr. Johnson. He always greeted her kindly, asking how she was settling in, and Diana found herself looking forward to those brief interactions. As the weeks passed, she noticed that Samuel seemed to find reasons to be around the main house more often. He would offer to fix things that did not really need fixing, or volunteer to help carry heavy items that Diana was perfectly capable of managing herself. Mrs. Johnson noticed too, and Diana sometimes caught the older woman watching them with an amused smile. One evening in late September, as Diana was hanging laundry on the line behind the house, Samuel approached carrying a basket of tomatoes from the garden. Mrs. Johnson asked me to bring these to you, he said, though Diana suspected Mrs. Johnson had done no such thing. Thank you, Diana said, taking the basket. These are beautiful. I will make sauce with them tomorrow. Samuel nodded, but he did not leave. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Is there something else? Diana asked gently. I was wondering, Samuel began, then stopped. He took a breath and started again. There is a harvest dance in town this Saturday. Most of the ranch hands are going. I was thinking maybe you would like to go. With me, I mean, if you want to. Diana's heart skipped. She had not been courted, had not danced, had not felt like a woman someone might desire in so long. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, but another part held back, afraid. I do not know if that is a good idea, she said slowly. People in town know about what happened with Thomas and his family. They will talk. Let them talk, Samuel said firmly. Their opinions do not matter to me. But if you are not ready, or if you are not interested, I understand. I just thought it might be nice, but no pressure. Diana studied his face, the genuine hope and nervousness in his eyes. Samuel had been nothing but kind to her from the moment they met. He had helped her when she had nothing, had treated her with respect and dignity when everyone else had made her feel worthless. I would like to go, she said softly, if you are sure you do not mind the gossip. Samuel's face broke into a wide smile, and Diana realized it was the first time she had seen him truly smile. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger and even more handsome. "I will pick you up Saturday evening," he said. "It will be fun, I promise." After he left, Diana stood in the yard holding the basket of tomatoes, a smile playing at her own lips. She felt something she had not felt in a long time, something light and warm spreading through her chest. Hope, she realized, and maybe, just maybe, happiness. Saturday evening arrived, and Diana dressed carefully in her best dress, a green calico that brought out the color of her hazel eyes. She pinned her dark brown hair up carefully and allowed herself a small bit of pleasure at her reflection in the mirror. She looked almost pretty, she thought. Not beautiful, but pleasant enough. Samuel arrived promptly, freshly shaved and wearing clean clothes, his dark hair combed back. He offered her his arm, and they rode into town together in the ranch wagon, making easy conversation about the ranch and the approaching winter. The dance was being held in the town hall, and it was already full of people when they arrived. A small group of musicians played fiddles and guitars in one corner, and the floor was crowded with couples spinning and laughing. Diana felt a moment of panic as several heads turned their way, recognizing her. She could see the whispers starting, the speculative looks. Samuel must have felt her tense, because he squeezed her hand gently. "Ignore them," he murmured. "You have nothing to be ashamed of." He led her onto the dance floor, and soon they were caught up in the music. Samuel was a good dancer, leading her confidently through the steps. Diana found herself laughing as they spun, the music and movement chasing away her worries. They danced several dances, then stepped outside for fresh air. The night was cool and crisp, stars brilliant overhead. They walked a little way down the street, away from the noise and crowd. "Are you having a good time?" Samuel asked. "I am," Diana admitted. "Thank you for asking me to come." "I am glad you said yes." Samuel hesitated, then continued. "I have been wanting to ask you something for weeks now, but I did not want to rush you or make you uncomfortable." Diana's heart began to beat faster. "What is it?" "I would like to court you properly," Samuel said, turning to face her. "I know you have been through a terrible time, and I know you might not be ready for this. But I think you are an incredible woman, Diana. You are strong and kind and resilient. I admire you greatly, and I would like the chance to know you better, to see if this could become something more." Diana stared at him, overwhelmed. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, but another part, the part that had been hurt and rejected, held her back. "I am barren," she said bluntly. "That is what the porter said, and they might be right. If you are looking for a wife who can give you children, I am not the right choice." Samuel stepped closer, his eyes intense. "I am not the porter's Diana. I am not looking for a broodmare. I am looking for a partner, a companion, someone to share my life with. If we are blessed with children someday, that would be wonderful. But if we are not, that would be fine too. There are other ways to build a family if we want one." "You say that now," Diana said, her voice trembling. "But what if you change your mind later? What if you come to resent me the way Thomas did?" "I am not Thomas either," Samuel said firmly. "I know my own mind, Diana. I have known plenty of women in my life, but I have never met anyone like you. You are brave and strong, and you do not let hardship break you. Those are the qualities I value, not whether or not you can bear children." Diana felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Samuel reached up and gently wiped her tears away with his thumb. "Because you deserve kindness. Because I care about you. Because I think we could be happy together if you would give us a chance." Diana looked into his eyes and saw only sincerity there, only warmth and hope. She thought about how alone she had been, how broken and worthless she had felt. Samuel was offering her something precious, something she had thought she would never have again. a second chance. Yes, she whispered, I would like that. I would like to see where this could go. Samuel's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He took her hand and brought it to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. You have made me very happy, Diana Porter. They walked back to the dance hand in hand, and Diana no longer cared about the stares or whispers. She had found something rare and precious, and she was not going to let fear steal it from her. Over the following weeks, Samuel courted her properly. He took her on picnics when the weather was nice, taught her to ride horseback so they could explore the ranch together, and spent his evenings sitting with her on the porch of the main house, talking about everything and nothing. Diana learned that Samuel had grown up in Montana, the youngest of 5 children. His father had been a rancher too, and Samuel had learned the trade from the ground up. He had come to Spokane 5 years ago, looking for new opportunities, and had worked his way up to foreman through hard work and dedication. He had dreams of having his own ranch someday, a small operation where he could raise cattle and horses. He wanted a simple life, he told her, but a good one, a life filled with honest work and people he loved. Diana shared her own stories, the happy memories of her childhood before her parents died, the dreams she had once had of a large family and a home filled with love and laughter. She told him about the pain of her marriage to Thomas, how it had slowly soured as month after month passed with no pregnancy, how she had felt like she was failing at the most basic thing a wife was supposed to do. Samuel listened to it all without judgment, holding her hand when the memories became too painful. You did not fail at anything, he told her firmly. Thomas and his family failed you. They failed to see your worth, failed to honor their commitments, failed to show even basic human decency. That failure is on them, not you. His words helped heal something deep inside Diana, something she had not even realized was broken. She began to see herself differently, not as defective or worthless, but as a woman who had survived something terrible and come out stronger on the other side. As autumn gave way to winter, Diana and Samuel grew closer. Mrs. Johnson watched their developing romance with obvious approval, and even Mr. Johnson, usually taciturn, made comments about what a fine couple they made. One cold December evening, Samuel asked Diana to take a walk with him despite the chill. He led her to the barn, where he had set up a small fire in a brazier to keep them warm. The light flickered across his face as he turned to her, suddenly serious. Diana, I have been thinking about this for weeks, and I cannot wait any longer, he said. I love you. I love your strength, your kindness, your determination. I love the way you laugh at my terrible jokes and the way you hum while you work. I love everything about you. Diana's breath caught. Samuel. I know we have only been courting for a few months, he continued quickly. And I know you might think it is too soon. But when you know something is right, you know. And this is right, Diana. You and me, we are right together. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple gold band with a small diamond, nothing fancy but beautiful in its simplicity. Will you marry me? Samuel asked. Will you be my wife, my partner, my companion for the rest of our lives? Diana looked at the ring, then at Samuel's face, seeing the love and hope shining in his eyes. She thought about everything that had happened, how she had been cast out and broken, how she had thought her life was over. And then Samuel had appeared, offering her not just kindness but genuine love, seeing her as a whole person worthy of devotion. Yes, she said, her voice strong and sure. Yes, I will marry you. Samuel let out a whoop of joy and swept her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed. When he set her down, he slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. They kissed then, their first real kiss, and it was everything Diana had hoped for. Gentle and passionate at the same time, full of promise and possibility. They were married in early January 1883 in the same church where Diana had married Thomas, but this time felt completely different. This time, she walked down the aisle with a light heart and a genuine smile. Mrs. Johnson stood with her as her matron of honor, while Samuel's best friend Jake, another ranch hand, served as his best man. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. When Samuel said his vows, promising to love and cherish her in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, Diana believed him with every fiber of her being. And when she made her own promises, she meant them with her whole heart. After the ceremony, the Johnsons hosted a small reception at the ranch. It was nothing fancy, just good food and good company, but Diana had never been happier. She danced with her new husband, laughed with their friends, and felt truly at peace for the first time in years. Samuel had saved enough money to rent a small cabin on the edge of the Johnson property. It was modest, just 3 rooms, but it was theirs. Mrs. Johnson had been sad to lose Diana as her housekeeper, but had insisted on giving them dishes and linens as a wedding gift. Their wedding night was tender and sweet. Samuel was patient and gentle, understanding that Diana's experiences with Thomas had not always been pleasant. He took his time, making sure she felt cherished and desired. And when they finally came together, it felt like a new beginning, wiping away the painful memories of her first marriage. The months that followed were the happiest of Diana's life. She loved being Samuel's wife, loved the way he kissed her goodbye each morning before heading out to work on the ranch, loved coming home to him each evening. They worked together to make their little cabin into a real home, and Diana found joy in the simple domesticity of cooking his favorite meals and mending his clothes. Samuel had started saving money more aggressively, working extra hours when he could, determined to make his dream of owning his own ranch a reality. Diana helped by taking in sewing and selling baked goods in town, and slowly but surely, their savings grew. Spring came, bringing warmer weather and longer days. Diana was working in their small vegetable garden one afternoon when she felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She sat down quickly, her head spinning. The feeling passed after a moment, and she dismissed it as having stood up too quickly. But the dizzy spells continued over the next few days, accompanied by a strange, queasy feeling in her stomach, especially in the mornings. Diana tried to ignore it, tried to convince herself it was nothing. But when she realized her monthly courses were late, very late, she could no longer deny what her body was trying to tell her. She was pregnant. The realization filled her with a confusing mix of emotions. Joy certainly, but also fear. What if something went wrong? What if she lost the baby? What if it turned out she had been able to conceive all along, and Thomas had simply given up too soon? The thought made her feel strangely guilty, though she knew logically that she had done nothing wrong. She did not tell Samuel right away. She wanted to be sure, wanted to wait until she had seen the doctor. But Samuel knew her too well. He noticed her changed appetite, the way she suddenly could not stand the smell of coffee in the mornings, the exhaustion that had her falling asleep earlier than usual. One evening, as they sat together on their small porch watching the sunset, Samuel took her hand. "Diana, are you feeling all right?" he asked gently. "You have seemed tired lately, and I have noticed you have not been eating much." Diana took a deep breath. There was no point in hiding it any longer. "I think I might be pregnant," she said quietly. "I am not certain yet, but the signs are there." She watched Samuel's face carefully, afraid of what she might see. Doubt, disappointment if it turned out to be false, but his expression showed only pure, unfiltered joy. "Really?" he breathed. "Diana, that is wonderful." "You are not upset?" she asked. "Upset? Why would I be upset?" Samuel pulled her into his arms. "This is incredible news. A baby, our baby. What if I lose it?" Diana whispered against his chest. "What if something goes wrong?" "Then we will face it together," Samuel said firmly. "But let us not borrow trouble. Right now, you might be carrying our child, and that is a miracle. Let us celebrate that." The doctor in Spokane confirmed what Diana already knew. She was about 2 months along, and everything appeared healthy. He told her to rest when she needed to eat well, and to avoid heavy lifting. Diana followed his instructions carefully, terrified of doing anything that might endanger the precious life growing inside her. As her belly began to swell, Samuel became almost comically protective. He insisted she sit down at every opportunity, would not let her carry anything heavier than a teacup, and fussed over her constantly. Diana found it both endearing and exasperating. "Samuel, I am pregnant, not made of glass," she told him one day, after he had insisted on carrying a basket of vegetables that she was perfectly capable of managing. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "Yes, but those women were not carrying my child," Samuel said stubbornly. "I am going to make sure you and the baby are safe, even if it drives you crazy." Diana could not help but smile at his fierce protectiveness. It was such a stark contrast to how Thomas had been, distant and cold, as if her inability to conceive had been a personal insult to him. Samuel's love and excitement made her feel cherished in a way she had never experienced before. Summer arrived, bringing heat that made Diana's pregnancy more uncomfortable. She spent much of her time in the shade, her hands often resting on her swelling belly, feeling the baby move and kick. Each flutter, each roll, filled her with wonder. She was creating life, something she had been told she could not do. Mrs. Johnson had been delighted by the news and often stopped by the cabin with food and baby clothes that had belonged to her daughter Mary. The older woman's support meant the world to Diana, who had no mother of her own to guide her through this experience. One afternoon in late July, Diana was in town buying fabric to make baby clothes when she ran into Margaret Porter, her former mother-in-law. The older woman stopped short when she saw Diana's pregnant belly, her face going pale and then flushing with anger. "You were not barren after all," Margaret said accusingly. "You lied to us." Diana felt her temper flare, all the pain and humiliation she had endured at this woman's hands coming rushing back. "I did not lie about anything," she said coldly. "I could not conceive with Thomas. Perhaps the problem was not with me at all. Did you ever consider that?" Margaret's face went even redder. "How dare you suggest that my son—" "I am suggesting nothing," Diana interrupted. "I am simply stating facts. You cast me out and made me feel worthless because I could not give you grandchildren. But here I am carrying a child. So perhaps your son was the one with the problem. Or perhaps God simply did not see fit to bless a marriage that was based on your family's greed and cruelty." She turned and walked away before Margaret could respond, her heart pounding. She felt shaky but also strangely liberated. She had stood up for herself, had refused to let that hateful woman make her feel small ever again. When she got home and told Samuel about the encounter, she expected him to be upset. Instead, he laughed and pulled her into a gentle hug, mindful of her belly. "That is my fierce wife," he said proudly. "I bet Margaret did not know what hit her." "I probably should not have said those things," Diana said, though she did not really feel sorry. "You said exactly what needed to be said," Samuel assured her. "That woman deserves no courtesy from you after how she treated you. I am proud of you for standing up to her." As Diana's due date approached in September, Samuel became even more anxious. He had arranged for Mrs. Johnson and the doctor to be present for the birth, and he checked on Diana constantly, as if she might go into labor at any moment. The pain started on a cool September morning, just as the sun was rising. Diana woke Samuel, trying to stay calm, and he immediately sprang into action. Within an hour, Mrs. Johnson and the doctor had arrived, and Diana was in the throes of labor. It was long and difficult, lasting nearly 14 hours. Samuel stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, whispering encouragement when she was sure she could not go on. The pain was intense, overwhelming, but every time Diana felt like giving up, she looked at Samuel's face and found the strength to continue. Finally, as the sun was setting, their baby was born. The doctor held up the squalling infant, and Diana heard him say, "It is a boy. You have a son." Samuel's face was wet with tears as he looked down at their child. The doctor placed the baby in Diana's arms, and she stared down at the tiny, perfect creature they had created. He had dark hair like his father and a pair of lungs that suggested he would be loud and demanding. Diana had never seen anything so beautiful in her entire life. "Hello, little one," she whispered, running her finger gently down his soft cheek. "We have been waiting for you." "He is perfect," Samuel breathed, sitting beside her on the bed. "You are perfect. You did so well, Diana. I am so proud of you." They decided to name him Samuel Sullivan Jr., though they planned to call him Sam to avoid confusion. As Diana held her son and watched her husband's face, full of love and wonder, she felt a sense of completeness she had never experienced before. This was what she had been meant for, this life, this family, this love. The weeks after Sam's birth were exhausting but joyful. Diana was up at all hours feeding and changing him, but she did not mind. Samuel helped whenever he could, walking the floor with Sam when he was fussy, changing diapers without complaint, looking at his son with such adoration that it made Diana's heart swell. Mrs. Johnson was a frequent visitor, always bringing food and offering advice. She taught Diana how to soothe a colicky baby and how to tell the difference between a hungry cry and a tired cry. Her support was invaluable, and Diana did not know how she would have managed those first difficult weeks without her. As Sam grew, he revealed more of his personality. He was an easy baby for the most part, quick to smile and curious about everything. Samuel would sit with him for hours, talking to him as if he could understand every word, telling him about the ranch and the horses and the dreams he had for their future. One evening, when Sam was about 3 months old, Samuel came home from work with an excited look on his face. "I have news," he said, barely able to contain his enthusiasm. "Mr. Johnson is selling off a portion of the ranch, about 50 acres on the eastern edge. He is offering it to me at a very fair price, and he is willing to let me pay in installments." Diana's heart leaped. "That is wonderful. Is it enough for what you have been planning?" "It is perfect," Samuel said. "There is good grazing land, a water source, even a decent spot to build a house. It is everything I have been dreaming of. We could build our own ranch, Diana, our own home for our family." "How much would we need for the down payment?" Diana asked practically. "We have almost enough saved," Samuel said. "If we are very careful over the winter, we can make the purchase in the spring and start building." They spent the evening making plans, dreaming about the home they would create. Samuel wanted a larger house than their current cabin, with enough room for more children if they were blessed. Diana imagined a real kitchen, a proper parlor, and bedrooms for each child. It felt like a fantasy, but Samuel's determination and careful planning made it seem possible. Winter came, bringing snow and cold. Samuel continued to work hard at the Johnson Ranch, saving every penny he could. Diana helped by taking in more sewing work, often stitching by lamplight after Sam had gone to sleep. It was exhausting, but they both kept their eyes on the goal. In March of 1884, Samuel made the down payment on the land. Mr. Johnson shook his hand warmly, clearly pleased to see his foreman achieving his dreams. They had an agreement that Samuel would continue working as foreman while building his own ranch on the side, an arrangement that suited everyone. Samuel spent every spare moment on their new land. He cleared areas for the house and barn, marked out where the fences would go, and began stockpiling materials. Diana visited when she could, bringing Sam with her, and tried to envision what it would all look like when it was finished. By summer, Samuel had recruited several of the ranch hands to help with the building in exchange for future work. The house went up slowly but steadily, and Diana watched with wonder as their dream took shape. It was a simple two-story structure, but it was solid and well built, with 4 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a parlor with a fireplace. They moved into their new home in October, just before Sam's first birthday. The house still needed work. There were rooms that needed finishing, and 100 small details to attend to, but it was theirs. Diana walked through the rooms with Sam on her hip, hardly able to believe this was real. "What do you think?" Samuel asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around both of them. "I think it is perfect," Diana said honestly. "I think we are incredibly blessed." Samuel had already purchased a small herd of cattle, and he was building up his breeding stock slowly and carefully. It would be years before the ranch was truly profitable, but they were young and determined. They had time. That winter was their first in the new house, and despite the cold, Diana had never been happier. She loved having more space, loved the way the fire crackled in the big fireplace, loved watching Sam take his first steps across the wooden floors Samuel had laid with his own hands. In the spring, Diana discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the news did not come with fear or doubt, only joy and excitement. Sam would have a sibling, and their family would grow. This pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because Diana was not carrying the weight of fear and past trauma. She felt stronger, more confident in her body's ability to do what it was meant to do. Samuel was just as protective as before, but Diana had learned to work around his fussing. Their second child, a daughter, was born in November of 1885. They named her Daisy, and she was smaller and more delicate than Sam had been, with her mother's hazel eyes and blonde hair that surprised them both. Samuel was completely besotted with his tiny daughter, treating her like the most precious thing in the world. Sam, now 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister, always wanting to help feed her or rock her cradle. Diana watched her children together and felt her heart might burst from happiness. The ranch continued to grow. Samuel proved to be a skilled rancher, and his cattle breeding program began to gain a reputation for quality. They hired their first ranch hand in 1886, a young man named Pete who was eager to learn the trade. With the extra help, Samuel was able to expand their operations further. Diana managed the household and raised the children, but she also became involved in the ranch's business side, keeping the books and managing the finances. She had a good head for numbers, and Samuel valued her input on all major decisions. They were true partners in every sense of the word. Over the years, they added 2 more children to their family: a son, David, born in 1888, and another daughter, Sophia, born in 1890. Their house was full of noise and laughter, the sound of children playing and growing. Diana sometimes thought about her first marriage, about the pain and rejection she had endured, but those memories felt distant now, like they had happened to a different person. The woman she had been, broken and despairing on that dusty road, seemed like a stranger. She had been reborn into this life, this family, this love. One evening in the summer of 1893, Diana and Samuel sat on the porch of their home, watching their 4 children play in the yard. Sam was 10 now, tall and serious like his father, already helping with the ranch work. Daisy was 7, clever and imaginative, always coming up with elaborate games for her younger siblings. David was 5, energetic and adventurous, constantly getting into mischief. And Sophia was 3, the baby of the family, sweet and affectionate. "Do you remember the day we met?" Samuel asked, taking Diana's hand. "Of course," Diana said. "You gave me water and fed me lunch when I had nothing. You showed me kindness when everyone else had turned me away." "I knew the moment I saw you that you were special," Samuel said. "I could see the strength in you, even when you were at your lowest. I knew I wanted to be part of your life." Diana squeezed his hand. "You saved me, Samuel. I do not know where I would be if you had not taken me in, if you had not loved me." "You saved yourself," Samuel corrected gently. "You survived something terrible and came out the other side. I just had the good sense to recognize what an incredible woman you are. I am the lucky one, Diana. Every single day I thank God that you walked onto the Johnson Ranch that day. You and these children are everything to me." Diana leaned her head on his shoulder, watching their children laugh and play in the golden evening light. She thought about how far she had come, from being cast out and told she was worthless to this life full of love and purpose. She had everything she had ever wanted: a home, a family, a partner who truly valued her. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," Samuel replied. "Always have, always will." As the sun set over their ranch, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Diana felt a deep and abiding peace. The past could not be changed, and the pain she had endured would always be part of her story. But it did not define her. What defined her was this moment, this life she had built, this family she loved with all her heart. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and challenges. There were hard winters when they worried about losing cattle, dry summers when the creek ran low, accidents and illnesses that tested their resolve. But through it all, Diana and Samuel faced everything together, their love growing deeper and stronger with each passing year. Sam grew into a fine young man, taking on more and more responsibility on the ranch. At 16, he was nearly as skilled as his father, and neighbors began asking for his help with their own herds. Daisy was proving to be as clever as her mother, excelling in her studies and expressing a desire to become a teacher. David had inherited his father's love of animals and spent hours training horses. And Sophia, growing into a beautiful young girl, showed talent in art and music. Diana and Samuel watched their children grow with pride and wonder. They had built not just a successful ranch, but a family full of love and possibility. Their children would have opportunities, would be able to make their own choices about their lives. That was the greatest gift Diana could imagine. In 1898, when Diana was 38 years old, she discovered she was pregnant again. It was unexpected, as Sophia was already 8 years old, and Diana had assumed her childbearing years were behind her. Samuel was both thrilled and worried, knowing that pregnancies at Diana's age carried more risks. But Diana sailed through the pregnancy with the same strength she had shown through everything else in her life. In the spring of 1899, she gave birth to twin boys, a complete surprise that had everyone laughing and scrambling to prepare. They named them Thomas and Henry, and despite the sleepless nights and exhaustion that came with caring for twins, Diana had never been happier. Now in their 40s, Diana and Samuel found themselves starting over in some ways, with babies in the house again. But their older children helped, and the whole family fell in love with the twins. One afternoon, as Diana was feeding the babies with Sophia's help, there was a knock at the door. Samuel answered it, and Diana heard voices. One she recognized with a jolt of shock. It was Thomas Porter, her first husband. Diana handed the baby she was holding to Sophia and went to the door. Thomas stood on the porch, looking older and worn, his face lined with bitterness. Samuel stood beside him, tense and protective. "Diana," Thomas said, his voice uncertain, "I hope you will forgive the intrusion. I wanted to speak with you." "What do you want, Thomas?" Diana asked coldly. "I wanted to apologize," Thomas said, the words clearly difficult for him. "My parents are both dead now. My mother passed last year and my father this spring. Going through their things, reading their papers, it made me think about the past, about how we treated you." Diana crossed her arms. "You threw me out like garbage because I could not give you children, and now I see that you and your new wife have no children either, do you?" Thomas flushed. "No. Rebecca and I have been married 8 years and she has never conceived. The doctor says the problem is likely with me, not her. All those years I blamed you, and it was my fault all along." "I know," Diana said simply. "I figured that out a long time ago." "I am sorry," Thomas said, and there were tears in his eyes. "I am sorry for how we treated you, for the pain we caused you. You deserved better, and I was too weak to stand up to my parents. Too selfish to see your worth. I see now what I lost. You have built a beautiful life here. You have everything we wanted, and you found it without me." Diana looked at the man she had once been married to and felt nothing but pity. She had loved him once, but that love had been poisoned by his weakness and his family's cruelty. She felt no satisfaction in his apology, no sense of vindication. She simply felt glad that she had moved on. "I accept your apology, Thomas," Diana said quietly. "Not for your sake, but for mine. I will not carry anger toward you anymore, but I need you to understand something. What happened to me, being cast out by you and your family, was one of the worst things I have ever experienced. But it was also the best thing that could have happened, because it brought me here to this life, to Samuel and my children. I am happy, Thomas, truly deeply happy, and I would not change a single thing about my life now." Thomas nodded, wiping at his eyes. "I am glad for you. You deserve that happiness. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong, that you were never the problem." "I know that now," Diana said. "Goodbye, Thomas. I wish you well." After Thomas left, Samuel pulled Diana into his arms. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine," Diana said, and she meant it. "That man is part of my past, but he has no power over my present or my future. All that matters is us, our family, our life together." Samuel kissed her forehead. "That is all that has ever mattered." As the years moved toward the new century, the Sullivan Ranch continued to prosper. Samuel had achieved his dream of building a successful operation, and he was known throughout the region as a fair and skilled rancher. Diana was respected in the community, involved in the church and various charitable organizations. Their older children were making their own ways in the world, while the younger ones still filled the house with energy and life. On their 20th wedding anniversary, in 1903, Samuel surprised Diana by taking her on a trip to Seattle, their first real vacation together. They stayed in a nice hotel, ate in restaurants, and walked along the waterfront. It was strange and wonderful to be alone together, without children or ranch responsibilities. One evening, as they watched the sunset over Puget Sound, Samuel turned to Diana. "When I think about everything we have been through, everything we have built together, I am amazed," he said. "We started with nothing but hope and determination, and look at what we have created." "We have been very blessed," Diana agreed. "It is more than that," Samuel said. "We made our own blessings. We worked hard. We loved each other. We never gave up. That is what made the difference." Diana thought about the young woman she had been, standing in the dust with a single carpet bag, believing her life was over. She could never have imagined then that she would end up here, with this life, this love. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Marrying a woman who had been cast out, who came to you with nothing?" Samuel pulled her close. "Not for a single second. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Diana Sullivan. You made me a better man. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to build something that will last. I would choose you again and again in every lifetime." Diana kissed him, pouring 20 years of love and gratitude into that simple gesture. "And I would choose you, my cowboy who took me in and showed me what real love looks like." They returned home to find their ranch running smoothly, their children thriving. Life continued in its comfortable rhythm, the seasons turning, the years passing. There were more grandchildren eventually, as Sam married a sweet girl from town, and Daisy wed a young teacher she met at the school where she taught. Diana and Samuel grew older together, their hair turning gray, their bodies showing the wear of years of hard work. But their love never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger, deepened by shared experiences and the life they had built together. In 1910, when Diana was 50 years old and Samuel 52, they celebrated their 27th wedding anniversary, surrounded by their children and grandchildren. Looking around at the faces she loved, Diana felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She thought about the moment that had changed everything, when a kind cowboy had offered her water and seen her worth when she could not see it herself. Samuel had not just taken her in, he had loved her, truly and completely, with all her imperfections and all her strengths. He had given her not just a home, but a future, not just children, but a family built on love and respect. That night, as they prepared for bed in the house Samuel had built with his own hands, Diana looked at her husband. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" Samuel asked. "For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For loving me when I felt unlovable. For building this life with me. For every moment of the last 27 years." Samuel crossed the room and took her in his arms, holding her close. "I am the one who should be thanking you. You took a chance on a simple cowboy with big dreams. You worked beside me, you believed in me, you gave me the greatest gifts of my life. I love you, Diana. I will love you until my last breath and beyond." They held each other in the quiet of their room, two people who had found each other when they both needed it most, who had built something beautiful from pain and loss. Outside, the ranch they had created stretched into the darkness, a testament to their hard work and dedication. Inside, in this moment, there was only love. The years ahead would bring more changes, more challenges, more joys and sorrows. But Diana and Samuel would face them together, as they always had, their love the foundation that held everything else together. They had proven that the past did not have to define the future, that second chances were possible, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. From the ashes of rejection and heartbreak, they had built a legacy that would last for generations. Their children would tell their children about the grandmother who had been cast out but had survived, about the grandfather who had seen her worth and loved her unconditionally. They would tell the story of how love had triumphed over cruelty, how kindness had changed everything, how two people had created something beautiful together. And every time the story was told, it would end the same way, with Diana and Samuel surrounded by the family they had created, the life they had built, the love that had sustained them through everything. It was a story with a happy ending, but more than that, it was a story of hope and resilience, of second chances, and the power of unconditional love. Diana had been thrown out when she could not conceive, told she was worthless and broken. But a cowboy had taken her in and loved her, and together they had proven that a person's value had nothing to do with their ability to bear children, and everything to do with the content of their character, the strength of their spirit, and the capacity of their heart to love and be loved. As Diana drifted off to sleep in Samuel's arms that night, surrounded by the life they had built together, she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The road had been hard, the journey painful, but it had led her here, to this moment, to this love, to this life, and she would not change a single thing. The Sullivan Ranch would continue to thrive for decades to come, passed down through generations, a testament to what two people could build when they loved each other truly and completely. And every spring, when the wildflowers bloomed across the fields and the new calves played in the pastures, it would serve as a reminder that even from the darkest moments, beauty could grow, that hope was never truly lost, and that love, real love, could conquer anything,